Raglan sleeve part 2. Now for knits. Join us today for Tricky Thursday. This week, we'll be talking about how to make a raglan sleeve pattern for your knits. Welcome back to my channel again. My name is Trisha, your pattern nerd friend. I am here to share all of the pattern making knowledge in an easy, digestible manner so we can all have fun learning this superpower of pattern making and making it cool. If you've joined us last week for Tricky Thursday, we went over how to make a raglan sleeve for woven fabrics, which is a different draft than if making it for knits. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please check out the video linked below and find out how to make a raglan sleeve for your woven fabrics, if that is your desire. Today, we're gonna be focused on knits, which actually is an easier draft. I wanted to start with the wovens because usually when learning pattern making, you're starting with wovens, but if you're not a wovens kind of person and you're more into knits, then this is gonna be the one for you. And actually, this raglan style sleeve, again, it is the seam. So we don't have a separate sleeve seam like we do on a basic bodice and a basic t-shirt style. The raglan style, and what makes it so is that the sleeve seam goes all the way up to the neck and it goes down. So there is no separate sleeve seam. This is a very popular design for sweatshirts and hoodies. Even you can see those baseball style t-shirts. That's very popular where you can do the contrast of colors. That's very nice. So I would have to say that the most raglan sleeve designs that I have are for a stretch material or a knit material. So this is probably going to be the more popular video, but we'll see. So honestly, this is probably going to be a lot easier than you've ever thought it was. It kind of was for me when I thought about it. Before getting into this, just like I did with the last raglan sleeve, and really honestly, anytime you do any kind of pattern, any style of pattern, you're gonna run into that there are lots of different ways to draft a style like this. Some things that you want to consider that would come into play is how fitted do you want it to be under the arm, because the more fitted you have it under the arm, the more you can start with how your bodice originally starts. If you're wanting it to be more oversized and boxy, then you'll probably want to drop your armhole a little bit. We're going to be dealing with an armhole that is not dropped, just in case you want that up under the arm for movement and range, but do know that this should give you a place to start, and then if you did want to drop your armhole, then you could kind of play around with how to do that. I try to pick the most simple tutorial I can think of because I want pattern making to be fun and easy for you so that you can take it from there and like make it as complicated as you want. So that's what we're going to be dealing with today, and this is a quick example just to show you how it looks. But let's jump into the fun and get to the table. One thing you want to be sure of when you're drafting this style of knit raglan sleeve, you want to make sure your patterns are balanced. Now I'm using my woven bodice pattern. You would obviously use a knit bodice or top since this is going to be for knit raglan sleeves. But you can look at if you had a basic t-shirt pattern or you drafted another pattern that you wanted to use this for and you're starting with the bodice, this is what you want to be looking at. So when you're looking at lining up, I've got the front over the back and I've got my grain lines parallel to each other. They're almost on top of each other. And I've got the lower point of my sleeve here touching and my fronts are parallel. I can see that even though the back is longer, this goes over to me, they are parallel at the shoulder sleeve. Another way you want to check is if you do connect this top shoulder point here. Remember, the big thing is these need to be parallel. They don't need to be touching, but they need to be parallel. And the reason, using this pattern, I only have the one dart, which causes that side seam to swing way out. So it's kind of hard to go off of the lower one. But when you lay this here and you have your shoulder points lined up with each other and your center front and your center back are parallel with one another, you want to make sure this area is what we are looking at. So this is something you want to do before drafting this style of raglan sleeve. We want to make sure that these two angles are the same. So if you're seeing it and it looks like this, but your center front and center back are parallel to one another, then you want to true this up. You want to make this even so that they are at the same slope like my pattern is. See how my pattern is at the same slope? And the reason for that will become clear towards the end of the video, but I wanted to point that out first. For this particular draft, we don't need a sleeve sloper. We are going to be drafting right off of it. And I just wanted to show you, this is, and I am working in half scale just to make it easy for you to see, but this is my front and back knit sloper that students learn with me when they start taking my classes. So you can see that's still the same. My front and back are parallel and my shoulder seams are at the same slope, but I just wanted to point that out, and you can really use any pattern. So we are going to start with the front. So I just traced this off onto a fresh piece of paper. Then we're going to take our ruler. So first thing you want to do is mark where you want your sleeve to hit at the neck. And again, this can be anywhere. It's totally up to you. You are the boss. From that point, you want to take your ruler and angle it down to wherever the ruler hits the curve. So in this case, it's hitting it right here. So we're not really paying attention to the notches in this exercise because we don't matching it up to a sleeve. And for a knit raglan sleeve, the line is typically more straight because you're dealing more with stretch. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to do my single notch there. That will tell me that is the front. So when you get to this point, the next thing you want to do is we want to mirror this curve that goes below where you've marked it. So doing this by hand, this is how I found it super easy. So I just bent along that line that I just drew, and then I can see that's where, maybe I'll mark it so you guys can see, that's where it's hitting that armhole. So I'm going to take my needle wheel and I'm just going to run it along the rest of the armhole curve and mark the side seam while I'm at it, so that when I open it up, we can see the perforations of where that curve is, and I'll draw it in so you can see it better. So we want to know where that curve goes, like so. From there, you want to extend your shoulder line the length of what your desired sleeve is. So this can be anything up to you. You can make a short sleeve, you can make 3/4, you can make full length sleeve. So I'm just going to pick a measurement since I'm not really making this pattern for anybody in particular. I'm going to add 8 inches past, so that would really be 16 inches if this was a real size pattern. So I'm going to add 8 inches past, and once you get to the bottom there, you want to square out from that line. So that means one of the lines of my ruler is there. I'm going to square down half of what the wrist measurement is. So I'm going to go 2.5 inches, which would mean that my total wrist opening is 10. I'm making up numbers here, but whatever you want your wrist measurement to be, this would be half of it for this part of the draft. Once you have that, you're going to connect that wrist measurement up to this mirrored curved raglan sleeve. And so the magenta would be the front sleeve and the green would be the front bodice. So let's go on to the back really quick. We are essentially going to do the same thing in the back. So I'm just going to decide where I want this to hit on my back neck. I'm going to use my ruler. I'm going to draw a straight line where it goes from that point to where I hit on the curve. Draw a straight line. I'm going to put 2 notches so I know that that is the back. I'm going to fold it again on that line so I can see the curve of the rest of the armhole. I'm going to take my needle wheel, and maybe you can see right there, that is where my line hits on the armhole. And I'm going to, with my needle wheel, draw in the curve there. Open it back up. Can we see the perforations? So I'm just going to follow those perforations, just like so. Then I am going to extend my sleeve the same amount that I did on the front. So in this case, and this is up to you, you are the boss with your own patterns. So I'm going to extend it all the way 8 inches out, when I get to the bottom of whatever my length is, I'm going to square my wrist measurement. And in my case, I went 2.5 inches. That can be whatever measurement you see fit for your design. Then you connect that line to your underarm point. That is our back raglan. So the magenta is our back raglan sleeve. The green is our back raglan bodice. So since these are connected with our armholes in the situation, I need to at least trace off the sleeve part so that I can have the bodice. But remember, you're going to cut. So this green part here doesn't exist. And that was the same for the front. So it's just really this corner where you have to trace them off. But this with the green will be your back. So I'm going to trace those off and show you. Here we are with both of the sleeves traced off. I have my front, which I know because of my single notch, and my back, I know because of my double notch. And typically when you are doing a knit raglan sleeve, you don't need to keep them separate. This can be one sleeve, so you can take one off and it should line up perfectly with the other because we made sure that angle was the same. So that is where you will run into problems if your initial pattern, the angle of your shoulder doesn't match or line up. And now we have a single sleeve with our front and our back, and these will sew, this will sew into the front bodice, this will sew into the back bodice, and this is our neck, and our sleeve would sew together. So you would just need to add seam allowance, and this is what your other pieces would look like. And of course, I did use a woven sloper to start this. So normally on your knit patterns, you're not going to have a dart, but I wanted to show you this important area. You can see where I traced that off of there, and then I've just added seam allowance to where it would go back, and same thing with the back. So like that. And you'll notice we did still keep the curve going under the arm. That's incorporated into the sleeve. This is for a higher under the arm knit raglan sleeve. If you wanted to drop your underarm seam on both the sleeve and the bodice, you could very well have made this a completely straight line. So that would be another option. But I wanted to show you this one and keep it easy. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and excited about making some raglan sleeves in your near future. Please hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and share this with your friends if you found this interesting, because I really want everyone to know about this fun pattern making stuff we've got going on over here. If you're ready for more, you want to learn more about different pattern designs and different pattern making styles like I teach here, you can check it out for free in my free pattern masterclass linked below. You can also, if you are ready to dive in and want to really get going with pattern making at a reasonable monthly subscription, then you might want to join us over at Pattern Making Academy at learnpatternmaking.com. That's all we have for you this week, but we will see you next week with another tricky tip for you. And until then, I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.